it could be just when you're trying to recruit a husband and wife or a whole family, there's more risk.
Yeah.
That maybe something like this would happen, that I would not get pulled in all the way, that I would go out and start talking about it.
You learn too much.
Yes. But so the big moment of that experience, that being pulled in to this Opus Dei community, was when I was at my recruiter's house for dinner, and they were always having us over. And my recruiter's brother, who's a bit of a show off, that they were talking about the evils of secular society. And the conversation was always about the evils of secular society, always about the faith, the church, the history of the church. And looking back, I think, well, gosh, how of course that was a cult. Who does that? And it was all about being Catholic. Catholic was just like your only identity. And so they were lamenting about the evils of the secular society. And my recruiter's brother said, well, none of this is going to matter at all when we finally get a Catholic king. And I was stunned.
This was an American that said that?
Yes, an American said that. And I went, I mean, like, I had never even imagined, I had never even heard those two words together. It just never would have, like, what? I mean, I was just like, and I was stunned, and he wasn't joking. And so my recruiter shot her brother a look like you're not supposed to talk about that. It was too soon, obviously. I started asking questions, and because we kept getting invited over. So I'm thinking, like, okay, I remember it was a few days later, and like I had my little daughter on my lap, and I was sitting on the floor in her living room. I'm like, so
about that Catholic king thing.
Yeah, I remember just thinking, because I could see the tension, and I was so curious, of course. And I was very familiar with the Constitution, because I'd studied it in depth, and I was like, so what's this like Catholic king thing? I mean, just dismantling the checks and balance system of the Constitution would not be easy. And how would you possibly do that? Are you serious? And one of them said, like, oh yeah, there's more going on than you know. It was more of this kind of showing off thing. And I'm like, And I said, so how would you possibly do that? Well, look, if Catholics are less than 20% of the population in the United States, and I'm thinking to myself, and Catholics like you are 5% of that, I said, oh, well, the plan is that we're going to team up with the evangelicals and the Mormons, and then the hapless, uneducated masses, which translates to MAGA. And, it'll be God's will. We'll need we'll need a lot of God's will there. We'll need a lot of prayers to get it done. But yeah, and I was taught that we don't say thy democracy come, thy will be done in the Lord's Prayer. We say thy kingdom come, thy will be done. And I was also told, just like stuff like, democracy is not really viable. And as Catholics, we are not called to be American. We're called to be Catholic. Just all of this stuff, like all the stuff that people hated Catholics for, which I always thought was a myth. All the stuff that, it's like, no, everyone was freaked out when John F. Kennedy became president because they thought, oh no, he's going to answer to the Pope. We can't have a Catholic president. And of course, I was raised thinking, I studied that in school. I'm like, well, of course, that was ridiculous. He's an American. Well, here I was hearing it with my own ears, the very rationale that made people so wary of John F. Kennedy. They were like, no, we're Catholic, we're not American. We're Catholics first. And democracy, there's nothing about democracy in Christendom.